More than 80% of people say they want to write a book, but fewer than 10% actually go on to do it. What do you want to say at the end of this year? That your draft is still incomplete, or that you finally finished the book you always dreamed you would write? I'm a book editor who has spent the past 10 years helping authors complete their drafts. And this year, I'm finally writing my very first book of my own. But I know that I have a huge task ahead of me. So as I looked at my calendar, I wanted to craft a simple, effective action plan that guarantees I'll meet my goal this year. So I thought, why not share it with you? The first step, admittedly, requires the most thinking and planning, but it's going to trick your brain into reconceptualizing how much work you have ahead. So to get on track to finish your book, first create milestones for yourself. Writing a book is a huge undertaking that typically requires months or years of your time, energy, and effort. Setting a goal to write a 70,000 word or longer book can feel extremely daunting. So first, we're going to take that huge goal of finishing your book and break it down into smaller, actionable milestones that you can visualize yourself achieving. These milestones should fit into your calendar and schedule. You shouldn't have to move mountains to complete your goal, because that's ultimately not sustainable and realistic. Just last week, my co-author and I sat down to set our schedule for completing our manuscript draft, and here's what it looks like. So you'll see that we have already completed 2 chapters as part of our book proposal, and we have 6 chapters to go. We allotted 2 weeks to complete each chapter because that's about how long it took us to complete those past chapters. So we will each work on a chapter simultaneously, and then we have baked in 1 week to review each other's chapters and add our comments and feedback. So if we stick to this schedule, we'll have a full draft by April, which gives us plenty of time to work on it and revise it before submitting it to our publisher. If you're curious to hear more about the book and how we got the book deal, check out my other video where I break it down. Setting chapter-based milestones like we did may or may not work for your particular project, depending on how it's structured. For instance, many novelists use word count goals because their chapters might be of various lengths, or they may not be conceptualizing their story in chapters to begin with. So you could experiment with a goal like write 1,000 words 3 times a week. Or if you don't want to set word count goals for yourself, set time-based goals where you sit down to write for an hour so many times a week and produce as much as you can in that allotted time. Either of those tactics are completely valid. The goal is for these milestones to be specific and measurable so that you can clearly track whether or not you are achieving them. Ultimately, these smaller goals will feel less overwhelming to tackle and will add up over time, even if they seem small in the moment. For example, if you set a goal of writing 200 words per day, by the end of the year, you would have a 73,000 word manuscript. That means that if 200 words a day sounds super doable to you, then you can absolutely finish a book this year. Now, I'm not saying you should write every day or have to write every day to achieve this goal. Most authors don't write every single day. After all, life gets in the way. Having just 1, 2, or 3 productive writing sessions per week will absolutely allow you to achieve your goal as well. In general, when setting milestone goals, I recommend erring on the side of caution. Don't set a goal to write every day if that's not realistic with your schedule, because that's just going to set yourself up for failure and disappointment, which could lead to you feeling discouraged and never picking up your book draft again. Set ambitious milestones, but make sure you work in enough wiggle room in case things come up. Now, most authors create these milestones and then stop there. But there's another critical step you need to take if you actually want to finish your book this year. And that's to make writing a habit. I hate to break it to you. If you say that you're going to fit in writing whenever you feel inspired or whenever you find some free time, you'll never end up writing. I've worked with authors on their books for 10 years now, and the most effective and successful authors have some semblance of a writing routine. And this is how they guarantee they'll make consistent progress. I saw a quote the other day that really inspired me. It said, "The story you're writing will become someone's favorite book, but that person will never get a chance to read your story unless you finish it." So this year, make it a goal to integrate writing into your weekly routine so it becomes a habit, something that you naturally integrate in your schedule without thinking about it. To do this, I love the method of habit stacking. You pair the new habit, which is writing for a given amount of time or to a given word count, with another habit you already do on a daily or weekly basis. For example, that could be after I make my morning coffee, I sit down and write. Or after I get home from the gym, I sit down and write. By pairing writing with another habit or routine that's already in your schedule, it's going to be so much easier to naturally integrate it into your day. And you'll start to establish a pattern that signals to your brain when it's time to get into that creative flow. For example, my habit stacking plan is to sit down to write after I take my dog out for his morning walk, because I find my head is clearest in the mornings when I haven't got into my emails or started my work on manuscripts for the day yet. To hear from best-selling authors about their writing routines and get weekly writing motivation delivered straight to your inbox, sign up for my newsletter Chapter Break. The link is in the description. Once you create your writing routine, it's only going to work if you shift your mindset and put yourself in the right headspace to complete your draft. And many authors fail to take this next critical step, which is to kill your inner perfectionist. First drafts are meant to be messy, so embrace that now. What's important right now is getting what's in your head down on the page. And I will tout the value of a so-called crappy first draft all day long. I see so many authors get stuck because they're comparing their first draft to published books out there that they admire, and they feel discouraged that their writing isn't up to par. But this comparison is not valid, because that published book that you love so much has gone through rounds and rounds of revision. And yours will too, and it will get to that point in time. As a book editor who revises manuscripts for a living and truly believes in the power of the revision process, I don't want you to get so caught up in your first draft being perfect that it prevents and paralyzes you from completing the draft at all. Ultimately, these expectations of perfection are only going to be counterproductive and detrimental to your writing practice. So here are some practical tips to kill your inner perfectionist and embrace the messy first draft. First, try writing sprints, which is a method that many authors swear by. You'll set a timer for 5, 10, or 15 minutes, whatever works for you, then write as much as you can in that time, then take a short break, and then repeat. By giving yourself a mini time crunch like this, you're going to focus more on the output of getting the words on the page, and you won't get so caught up in perfection. Another technique that's one of my absolute favorites is to use placeholders. If you're the type of writer who finds yourself going down research rabbit holes for hours on end, or if you find yourself reaching a point in a scene and then just getting stuck because you don't know how a character responds or what happens next, this is a great tactic to use. I've been using it myself in my own book manuscript. Anytime I reach a point in my draft where I'm not sure what to write, I just put the letters TK in all caps. Then once I complete the section or the chapter, I go back and I fill in those missing details. This allows me to get the majority of the material onto the page without getting caught up in sections that I need to think more about or do more research on. Another great technique, especially for novels or other narratives, is scene sketching. This is a similar technique to the placeholder method, but applies to full scenes. Say that you have a scene that you know needs to be in your story, but you're just not sure what to do with it yet. You can sketch it out in a few bullet points and then move on to that next scene that's already fully formed in your mind. Then once that scene is done, you can return to the earlier scene and flesh it out. This allows you to maintain your momentum on those scenes that you already know you want to write and can already see clearly in your mind. And you can then spend some more time on those scenes that haven't come to you naturally. Plus, writing out those other scenes might give you inspiration for those earlier scenes. And remember, no one says you have to write your book entirely chronologically. I'm certainly not. Now let's quickly talk about one of the ongoing debates in the writing community, whether to revise as you draft your manuscript or not. There's no right or wrong answer here. It all comes down to what works for your personal writing process. If you revise as you go, you might save yourself some time in the subsequent revision process, while if you fast draft your novel and don't stop to revise, you may have some more work on the back end. My advice would be to allow yourself the space to revise if you feel compelled to do so, but don't let it prevent you from getting new words on the page. In any given writing session, maybe aim to spend about 25% to 30% of that time on revising and the rest devoted to new material. Now you nearly have all the tools you need to finally complete your book this year, but without this final step, you're nearly guaranteed to fail. And that's to hold yourself accountable. It's one thing to say you're going to finish your book this year, and a very different thing to actually achieve that goal. After all, more than 80% of people say they want to write a book one day, and less than 10% actually do. From working with hundreds of authors over the years, I've seen so many creative ways authors keep themselves accountable and on track. Here are some of my favorite techniques. Get an accountability partner. Simply sharing your writing plan, those milestones we came up with in step 1, with someone else is going to make it feel that much more real and tangible. Ideally, this could be another friend who also has set writing goals for themselves. And you can meet on a weekly or monthly basis to check in about your progress and help brainstorm how to get through any roadblocks. My personal favorite technique is to plan your rewards. Our brains are hardwired to seek rewards for the effort that we put into a task. Plan small celebrations for achieving each of the milestones you set out in your writing plan. This could be getting your favorite takeout or watching your favorite movie. Even a small reward is likely to make you feel more motivated to sit down and write. And finally, find ways to visualize your success. Apps like Wordle and Duolingo have streaks built into the platform, which naturally makes us want to continue to keep up the momentum and maintain that streak. So try to create a visual of some kind. Maybe it's a calendar or a list where you check off every writing session that you do or every milestone that you reach, and that is going to be your own personal streak. Seeing it every day on your desk is likely going to make you feel more motivated to keep at it. The beauty of the beginning of the year is that it feels full of possibilities. It feels like we can do anything we set our minds to. But if you set your goal to finish your book now in January and then forget about it until June, you've now just given yourself way less time to complete your goal, and it's much less likely that you're going to achieve it. So I challenge you to set calendar reminders for yourself right now that inspire you to check in with yourself on your progress. That could be weekly or monthly, whatever makes sense for your personal writing calendar. Know that finishing your book is entirely within your control and entirely possible. You just have to create systems that empower and enable you to do it. Since I'm also finishing my book this year, rest assured I am right there with you on this journey. So let's keep each other accountable. Drop me a comment letting me know what your personal writing goal is for 2025. And to set yourself up for success once you finally have that complete draft in hand, make sure you grab my free resource linked in the description below called my Story Self-Assessment Worksheet. I created this to help you look for things in your manuscript that I do as a developmental editor. Make sure to also sign up for my newsletter via the link below to get weekly writing tips and inspiration delivered straight to your inbox. Before you head out, give me a thumbs up if you liked this video, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss my next one. Thanks so much for watching, and happy writing.